Welcome everyone to the April 3rd OpenJ9 community call. We'll start things off as we always do by taking a look at our agenda and just reminding everybody to please add your name and affiliation to the list just so we know who's been joining our calls regularly. And then the first thing we have up, as we always do, is we open things up to questions from the broader OpenJ9 community. So if there's any questions or any topics that people want to raise here, we can do that now. I'm going to follow up with Andrew because he had been tentatively scheduled to give a talk on the OpenSSL port, and so for the OpenSSL work.
Yeah, I believe he did do some prep for that, but then got messed up by the daylight savings difference between the UK and Canada. So I think when he's back, he should be in a position to do that.
Okay, perfect. Do you know when he's back, roughly?
Next week, I think.
Next week, perfect. That puts us April 10th. All right, good. We have something lined up for next week then. I see there was some discussion of risk V last week. Guess I'll watch the recording to catch up on that.
Well, just a quick summary. Boris has some stuff, OMR changes for risk V, but since nobody from OMR is on this call, we didn't really go into any details.
Okay. It might be worth connecting him and Cheng together as they...
Yeah, well, I did mention the OpenJ9 issue, but he said his interest wasn't Java.
Okay. I think there's a fair bit of overlap, though, where they could benefit from working together. So.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess let's jump along to the user-raised issues. So this one just came in. It's the case where people are passing empty option strings, and we're flagging that as an error. So we need to get somebody to take a look at this. I've tentatively set it against milestone 15, but if it's a minor enough fix, we might be able to slip it into 14. I'll have to see who we have who can take a look. In terms of the next couple of things, there's some debugging related issues and Docker images. Pete, do you want to comment on that?
When we did the switch to GC 7.3, forgot to update the Docker images. But then, so we have the Docker images that we've been using since the beginning as examples that are Ubuntu Docker images. We also have some Docker images that support Ubuntu plus other platforms like CentOS 6 that are not only for building but also set up for testing, and they're kept up to date. And I'm wondering if we should just throw away the Ubuntu images that we're not keeping up to date and document the other ones instead.
Yeah, so our original proposal with the Docker images was to have the minimal environment needed to build OpenJ9, more as a source of executable documentation than as a...
Yeah, which helps you if you want to use Ubuntu, but doesn't help you so much if you want to use something else.
I was going to say, how many additional dependencies are in the ones that we're using for test and for build?
I don't think there's a whole lot. I'd have to double check. It's like Perl and a few other things.
Okay, it might be worth...
We can certainly mention that they're there if people have an interest in wanting to test in them as well, and just make them aware that they're bigger.
Yeah, it sounds like we might want to take another run at the minimal build and test instructions to clean that up. I know we've had comments before around FreeMarker there as well.
So if we want to keep the older ones going, we need to, it might be good to have some sort of a test that makes sure they're still working, because things change every once in a while and we don't necessarily remember to update the Docker images. And I don't think we have Ubuntu 18 images for Java 12. I think we did it for 10 and maybe didn't have Java 12 at the time, so we just don't have one.
Okay. Yeah. So definitely something we need to make sure we're updating regularly. Or removing, as you say. Given the time frame, I think we should maybe move that discussion back into the issue and finish it there. Just for anybody on the call, if you want to chime in, if you have opinions, that would be helpful. And then looking at the rest of these, they're older than the previous call, so I think we've probably handled them already. Okay, so jumping back to our agenda. Coming up on the 014 release. Coming up on our milestone 1 or date of April 9th. So I guess the thing to do is probably to take a look at our milestone and see what's left in there as we come up on that milestone date. So the first issue here is a pull request that was open for an issue with modularity where a module with the same name gets repeatedly defined and unloaded. It was leading to crashes. And so there's a PR here to use something else rather than the name to track what the module actually is. So I've been reviewing that. We should be able to get that merged into head as soon as possible, hopefully today. And the risk from this seems fairly, I don't want to say fairly low, but it seems like the kind of thing we'd trip over fairly quickly, I hope. The internal error here, I'm not sure what the status of this item is.
Adam Farley is looking at that. It's a change to the JCL, which has been done in Java 12 and 13, but we're looking at a backport to 11.
Okay. Are we opening that backport request against OpenJDK, or is that being done through the extensions in the meantime?
We're doing both.
Perfect. Okay.
And this GPF is the issue for the PR you're just talking about.
Yeah. All right, and then we have some test failures. One on Z-Linux. Don't see anyone from the Z CodeGen team here. So we'll have to follow up with that offline. Another couple of JIT test failures. Yeah, so I'll have to follow up. Mark, unless you have the status or have an awareness of where these issues are at.
No, sorry, I don't.
Okay.
But I'll chase it after.
Thank you. Okay. So it looks like we're in reasonable shape for coming up on our milestone. And then we're expecting the final updates to land April 16th at OpenJDK. If we're looking at shipping within 48 hours, that may be problematic. Trying to think of when Easter actually is.
20th, I think.
20th. It doesn't give us a lot of time, but 48 hours would get us completed by Thursday night. So
I think the merges themselves take about 48 hours. We're still using the slower merge process, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to switch in time.
Yeah, so we were talking about giving priority to 8, so we should be able to get 8 out in that time scale, but as Peter says, the mergers do take a long time. They can be running while we use the machines that adopt JDK to build and test the 8s, which we're going to prioritize and hopefully we can get them through. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, the UK are out Friday and Monday. Is that the same in Canada?
I believe we only have Friday.
Oh, okay.
Which is the 19th, not the 20th.
Yeah.
All right, so prioritize.
So if we don't make the 18th, we're looking at the 23rd, aren't we?
Sorry, just pulling up a calendar again. Yeah, quite possibly. We may be able to find other ways to optimize that process. I know Andrew has mentioned that running the merges on dedicated machines or beefier machines may speed that up, even with the old process. So it may be an opportunity to get some better machines just for this merge.
I still think it takes something like 16 hours. Plus there's time zone problems and timing problems, right? Because the OpenJDK updates don't usually come until late in the day Eastern time, which is really late for UK time. So to start that merge process may not happen the same day, might happen the next day, yada, yada.
Yeah, so on the plus side, we may just need to get people in the Eastern time zone set up to do that or to kick that merge off so we're prepared for it.
Yep.
All right, something we can follow up with offline as well. All right, I will skip over the actions from the retrospective. Is it all things that we're already looking at? The one item here actually is there's an issue for changing the build times. Has that been completed?
Yes. Adam, you want to give a summary?
Sure. So we adjusted a few parameters that we weren't using. Trying to remember what they were. So there was one for quiet time, which means when you kick a build, it goes into a quiet period for 20 minutes. So it basically allows, if there's a couple merges coming back to back that have the same, that are within that 20 minutes, they'll get grouped into one build rather than have two builds go. And
Okay.
the other thing we did is there's some kind of a throttle parameter so that you can set to say only run this many builds per day, and it sort of tries to average it out. I think it just looks at the last time the last one ran actually, and it won't start it if there's been one kicked off within the last hour kind of thing.
We actually have an OMR acceptance build in the quiet period right now. There's one that was started at 10:20, and there's another one in its quiet period.
Okay. So it's interesting. I'm surprised. So one started at 10:20 and there's another one in quiet. I'm surprised that's there and not there because of the throttle part of it.
Well, maybe it'll be throttled once it leaves the quiet period.
Maybe, yeah. So.
Are we seeing machine capacity issues due to this, or has this helped resolve some of that?
There haven't been enough OMR acceptance builds since this was turned on to really tell.
Okay.
But I mean, right now it's allowing the first OMR acceptance to have full access before starting another one.
Okay.
Oh, the other thing I want to mention is when you kick it manually, it'll start right away without the quiet period.
What we were seeing is sometimes there'd be a flurry of OMR merges. That there could be nothing for a day or two, and then all of a sudden, 4 or 5 things get merged close to each other, and you can end up with 3 or 4 or even 5 builds all running at the same time, which basically takes all the machines.
Yeah.
And given that we rarely have any real failures in OMR acceptance, it just seems unnecessary. It means people can't run PR builds.
No, agreed. So, all right. We'll continue to monitor and see if it becomes an issue again, but hopefully this helps alleviate that. Shelley, can you give us an update for Adopt?
I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of new stuff from the last time. There's, I think mainly at Adopt, there's been some work to get the new machines up and running and configured. The repos for the Red Hat EAP builds are now created. Did we talk about that last time here? Oh yeah, approved. So the TSC has approved those to be hosted at Adopt. They are now, the repos have been created. I think we'll discuss how those will be shared through the website and API. That hasn't been decided upon yet. Nothing new for ICE-T except there are builds running. I think there were last week as we talked as well. Otherwise quiet. There's cleanup work in the build pipelines continuing. Am I missing anything grand, Simon, that you are aware of?
No, I don't think
nothing
so.
above what's in this list. So it's been a slower week.
I've got a short update about the website.
Oh, great.
The Adopt website. I don't know if people have noticed, but there's now a migration page there. It was a PDF at one point, and I managed to get that converted to an HTML page so that we can all contribute to it. So it's going to be a good place for putting in some of the sort of migration information to help people with ICE-T get started and that kind of thing. So I actually jumped on an ICE-T call that was taking place yesterday with the guy that's brought ICE-T to the project and the new company that are going to refactor it and change it. So they're aware that we've an interest in any feature gaps that there might be between the Oracle Web Start and either ICE-T or the new one when they eventually bring it in. And so I've got some names to go to for help in terms of getting that migration stuff written up. So that should help us from some of the offerings, help people get onto those offerings.
That's great.
I guess there's one more thing I forgot. So with my Adopt hat on, I've reached out to Elasticsearch to see about adding the Adopt both Hotspot and OpenJ9 binaries to their support matrix. So I'm hoping to hear back from them shortly. As we are running the Elasticsearch functional suite at Adopt, it seems appropriate to have our binaries listed in their support matrix.
I feel like I misspelled that, Shelley. So if you want to...
I'll go in and correct.
Perfect.
Thanks.
All right. In terms of moving OpenJ9 to its own top-level GitHub organization, discussions in there have continued mostly around the ability to add contributor teams. This is a feature required or requested frequently by larger organizations and larger teams like ours, and also the micro profile groups are looking for the same kind of support. And so hopefully something comes out of that soon. I have volunteered to be a guinea pig for helping set that up, and I know a couple of the micro profile leads have as well. So it's a matter of finding a solution that doesn't require large amounts of work from the Eclipse webmaster to get set up and maintain. So hopefully we will continue to poke at that and find some progress there soon. Adam, do you want to take us through the machines update?
Sure. So Violetta has been setting up the Sense6 machine at UNB. I think it's ready now. So we're just, next item is for Connor to stamp it out to more machines. Once they're ready and stable, then we'll go ahead and switch from Ubuntu 16 over. What we'll do with the Ubuntu 16 afterwards, I'm not sure if we're going to leave them for test or if we're going to just convert them all to Sense6.
One question there, what's the intended timeline on that?
I think I saw the update today that they're ready to be stamped out. So whenever that comes on Connor's top of his list, I'm expecting this week. I'm guessing. I'm not sure. I have to ask him.
Thinking we might want to wait until after we've completed the release.
Oh yeah, sorry. In terms of switching over, we can do that whenever everybody's in agreement.
Okay, so it's stamping them out is not the same as switching them.
Correct.
Thanks.
Yeah, and because they're a lower glibc, they're technically not doing anything in the farm other than running RELEng builds for testing purposes. Okay. In terms of AX, we filled out a renewal form last Monday, and I believe the funding has all been approved. So we're just waiting on the paperwork to go through the process. So just following that along. There is still a problem with one of the AX machines. It seems there's a problem because every time I recreate it, if it gets rebooted, the temp just disappears. So I put another request into support for that. Still haven't heard anything. Not a real update for the AX at OSU. Doesn't seem like it's going to be a suitable option unless IBM steps in and ups the support there. For the PPC at OSU, they have a yearly survey. So this is the first time we've had to fill it out. So it basically just indicates if we're using it and how we're using it, and any feedback we have for them. So I filled that out yesterday. I indicated that we would be interested in AX, which I mean they already know, but in terms of the Ansible stuff, Sam had a PR at Adopt to add his functionality that generates a machine list for Ansible Tower. There's been some concerns about that repo at Adopt, so we might end up hosting it not at Adopt going forward. We just have to discuss with Shelly about that this afternoon. Disk usage is continuing to go down now that our factory is enabled, so we're down to 93 gigs. I suspect we won't go much lower than that in terms of the current setup, but it still keeps going down every day a little bit, so we'll see. And still the next step for the PRs switching over is to separate the jobs. Lan has generated the new test jobs that have the build type suffix on them, but on top of that, they changed the naming convention for the test jobs. So we have to change that on our side as well. So I expect to have that done this week.
Okay.
And that's the last thing blocking the PR switching over. And that's it for me.
Anyone have any questions on any of the machine updates? The website design review. Sue, is there anything new on that?
No, but I did add in those 2 issues I mentioned in a previous call, which I noticed weren't in the list. So the bottom 2 there are a redesign for the header and footer, and an issue about moving the build page we currently have on the website elsewhere. So I think Peter has commented on one. I just put them there for awareness, really, in case anyone else wants to take a look.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other business that we want to bring up?
Just want to mention there's a lot of good new content at the blog from Raghu and from Babneet. And thanks everyone who's retweeted or tweeted that out. That's definitely caused a surge of traffic to the site.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I know I've read Babneet's blogs around locking, and there's a lot of great detail in there for anybody who's interested in learning more about how OpenJ9 handles locking and then some of the future directions there. Any other issues people want to discuss today? All right, then I think we'll close out the call for today, and we'll meet again next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.